No. No, you don't. So, at this very moment, the United States of America, along with its coalition partners, which includes Australia, by the way, there's a joke about Australia. Australians tend to ask, is this a private fight or can anyone join in? We're fighting a messy, protracted, and seemingly evanescent yet pervasive war in Iraq. And just next door, the Israelis and the Palestinians are doing the same thing. And neither war seems in any way winnable, no matter how you move the goalpost to define victory. Why is this? The war in Iraq against Saddam Hussein took 3 weeks. Why? Because it was a conventional war with conventional forces, and the United States is extremely good at that. What do? You decapitate the leadership, you disrupt the communications, and you watch the headless torso flop over in the sand. And that's exactly what happened in Iraq. But it took a few months after that for the first flourishes of the insurgency to form. And about another year before the insurgency was powerful enough to be taken very seriously as a threat to peace. Now, the army wasn't really worried about the insurgency because the armies fought insurgencies before. And even though they lost Vietnam, in the selection pressure of losing, they learned a lot about how to fight an insurgency. And not only that, there have been lots of successful wars against insurgencies. The French fought one against the Algerians and they won. The Russians just fought one against the Chechens and they won. So it can be done. Insurgencies can be fought. Those kinds of wars can be won. But you know what? This is not that kind of war. Every failure of every insurgency has itself been a selection pressure on all insurgencies around the world. And so to be successful, an insurgency can't repeat any of the mistakes of the insurgencies that preceded it. They have to learn and they have to adapt and they have to do it faster than their opponents do. Now, in the 20th century, when there was a lot of guerrilla warfare and a lot of insurgencies, the tactics and the strategies changed very slowly, say months to years. But today's insurgents use the internet. When something works, it gets disseminated immediately. Now, you've probably all seen videos that have been posted by various groups in Iraq of tanks blowing up or soldiers being shot. And in the West, we see that as, oh, they're bragging about their military success. No, they're trading technique with one another. That's what it is. So when something works, the entire insurgency knows about it. When something fails, again, it's spread just as quickly. But there's no center to the insurgency in Iraq. There's no central command, there's no authority. There's affiliations, there's ideology, there's religion, there's tribe, but there's no there, because if there were, we could bomb it, right? Pretty easy, but there's no there. There's no there. There was a there in Chechnya. There was a there in Algeria. There's no there. Why? Because the insurgents have learned that if there were a there, you could bomb it. They have selected against that. They have been selected against that. And so the insurgents of 2007 are more capable and more adaptable and more cunning. And if it were otherwise, they'd be dead. So, now, the United States lumbers through Iraq. This huge, enormous military. And what's it doing? It's exerting an enormous selection pressure on every one of the people who are seeking to resist it. And it does nothing but accelerate the production of forms that are capable of resisting it. So there it is, folks. The use of force, the only thing it ever does is breed those capable of resisting it. This is the only possible outcome. That's what natural selection dictates. And natural selection is not simply an idea that drives biology. I think I've made that clear by now. It's a universal principle. It's an underlying quality of reality. And the 21st century is where we get to find that out. But the odd thing about this, and this is the point that I want to leave you with right now before we come back to this conversation in a few days' time, is that all of this was perfectly spelled out 2,500 years ago by Lao Tzu. I want to quote chapter 30 of the Tao. For every force, there is a counterforce. Violence, however well-intentioned, always rebounds upon oneself. Now, if they knew this as a philosophy 2,500 years ago, maybe it's time for all the rest of us to get a clue, because we're entering, whether we like it or not, the Taoist century. And what just seemed a very intellectual and philosophical and well-intentioned school of thought is starting to be accepted as a real physical law. Thank you.